opinion holds the ultimate truth, and we encourage the viewers to draw their own conclusions on the matters discussed here. Fellow American, the most diabolical agenda in human history is in the makings. We suspect Obama and ISIS to be the key players in a confrontation that will strike dumb the entire planet.
My name is Ken White, and I'm part of a vigilante group of survival scientists and combatants who teamed up to do everything humanly possible to save our fellow countrymen from the coming total destruction of our nation. We have reason to believe this is not something you'll ever find in the media, and more than 95% of all Americans would never suspect this plot could ever exist. And although we are very well aware of the fact that one can never hope to make any sense of our leaders' political decisions, we will do our best to show you all the insane facts that we came across and what the final picture looks like when we put them together. So if you're a bit terrified by the thought of helplessly waiting for the total disintegration of the American way of life, and you feel you are not prepared to face the worst that can happen, I urge you to put everything else aside just for a moment and watch this urgent newscast before it's too late.
Security experts and defense analysts warn that what's coming in the next 5 months or less will put an end to our civilization, throwing the U.S. into a new dark age where blood and fire will rule the streets. No radio stations, no medical services, no trash pickups, no subways, no newspaper delivery, no newspapers at all, no heat, no elevators, no water from the tap, no cell phones, no police cars, no food, no help. It's a real turkey shoot, and we're standing on the wrong side of the rifle. My colleagues and I are ready to fight to the last man to ensure the survival of the American family. But there's no way of telling how successful our efforts will be. I can only pray this message reaches you in time, before the bloodshed that will kill more than 281.8 million Americans is set in motion. Just another hectic day in the Capitol. Nothing unusual about this scene, you might say. Not until the first sound of explosion close to the Pentagon. And then two more in strategic points of central subway stations, leaving thousands of people trapped underground. People start panicking and desperately take to their mobile phones to find out what's happening, only to discover all networks are down. A situation reminiscent of the 9/11 attack. Other explosions are detonated on main bridges and city streets. Terrified people flee the scene and leave their cars piled up all over town. Passengers on metro buses are thrown violently out of their seats as the buses bounce hard and shut down. With traffic at a standstill, another explosion detonates near Lafayette Park. Within seconds, the downtown electrical grid within a 4-block area is kaput. Nobody has the slightest idea what's going on. Police helicopters flying over the affected areas crash into the crowded streets below as their engines' power circuitry is cut off. TV and radio stations strive to broadcast breaking news of possible terrorist attacks, but with no luck. The city's power lines and satellites are down. People collapse in the street as their pacemakers halt. Old people fall to the ground, deafened by the horrible screeching sounds made by their hearing aids gone haywire. Security alerts jolt the Pentagon as state officials watch powerless, the data on the screen disappearing before their very eyes.
This is not a test. The emergency alert system has been activated. Please follow local and federal authority in your area. This is not a test.
The Emergency Operations Center is buzzing with chaos as the president and his military team try to regain control of the affected sectors. What happened here was a series of coordinated EMP attacks that quickly destroyed Washington's power grid and disabled all communication systems.
An EMP, or electromagnetic pulse, is an electromagnetic discharge that fries all electrical circuits within minutes, even seconds. Most modern-day appliances, the gadgets we use daily, and even the U.S. power grid all have sensitive circuits built in. Military command and control, as well as most of the high-tech equipment, are all very vulnerable to an EMP. Our enemy's plan is designed to take advantage of the traffic choke points in Washington City and use localized terrorist units to set off small-scale EMP blasts that will disrupt the city power grid and disable all machines operating on electricity. Halting traffic on the bridges and inside the city prevents emergency vehicles from reaching areas where bombs are detonated. The cars on the bridge were fired upon by special rifles that shoot radio frequencies instead of regular bullets. This type of weapon can easily be built for as little as $400 with easy-to-obtain parts. The operating principle is simple, much like a super soaker water gun. Water in a container, air pressure pumped in to the chamber, combine water and high pressure air in a tube, and out comes a powerful sprinkle. Same goes for a radio frequency device. Inside a tube, you wrap a magnetic field with a copper coil surrounded with capacitors. Charge up the capacitors, and add in a good energy source, such as an ignited C4 explosive, and bang! You're firing a stream of highly charged atomic particles towards an electronics-based target, like a car's electronics, an iPhone, someone's pacemaker, their national security communication systems. You get the point. The only thing is, you can't dry off radio frequencies on the exposed target like you would dry off water splashed from a water gun. These objects will simply have to be replaced.
And while our military's interception system is reduced to a deaf and dumb condition, a quiet submarine approaches our waters close enough to set off the final blow that sends America back to the Dark Ages. Because all it takes is just one missile with an EMP weapon attached to it to be detonated above the United States, and the effects are irreversible. An EMP device strategically detonated at an altitude of 20 miles above land will permanently disintegrate our power grid and plunge America into silence and darkness indefinitely. Clogged streets, no public transport, grocery and convenience stores run out of food and emergency supplies before being completely torn down by hungry, desperate people. Financial systems crash, Wall Street, banks, ATMs, they're all cooked as the American economy drops offline. Hospitals all over the affected areas are scenes of chaos and carnage as backup generators and battery-powered systems slow down and die. Respirators, cardiac monitors, intravenous drip pumps, and dialysis machines all stop. Patients die, first by the scores, then by the hundreds, then by the thousands. Hordes of military police are deployed all over the country to maintain some sense of law and order, but they are soon overwhelmed by all the desperate people fighting for their lives. And they realize it's beyond their power to control this world quickly spiraling out of control.
None of this is science fiction. It is science fact.
Scientists calculated that a single high-altitude burst 200 miles above Kansas could spread an EMP pulse across the entire continental United States. And beyond the major city centers, the damage will be done in countless ways, large and small. A blast over Pittsburgh can rapidly turn to dust virtually all agriculture and bulk transportation east of the Mississippi and north of Tennessee. The big farms, dependent on power for everything from milking machines to harvesting combines, will silently shut down, starving our people. The power industry is the foundation of our American civilization. From the massive hydroelectric dams and their generators to the hundreds of thousands of miles of power lines that stretch across the continent, to the local substations, to the transformers that hang on the pole down the street from your house, to the breaker box in your basement. All of this will be rendered useless. The electronics we use today are so much more complex and interdependent that the danger of one failure triggering another is higher than ever. Systems all across the country are often operating beyond capacity. New power plants are being built farther away from end users, creating miles of exposed transmission lines. Vital electronic systems are remotely managed and thus more at risk. Even without a power grid disaster, the big electrical transformers are made overseas and have a minimum 1 to 3 year production backlog. As Dr. William Graham, who chaired the 2008 EMP Commission, pointed out, any recovery of any one of the key infrastructures is dependent upon the recovery of others. The longer the outage, the more problematic and uncertain that the recovery will be. It is possible, he said, for the functional outages to become mutually reinforcing until at some point the degradation of infrastructures could have irreversible effects on the country's ability to support its population. The fact that key components of the United States electrical grid are not even manufactured in America and must be ordered a year in advance from foreign suppliers suggests just how complicated and time-consuming recovery might be, he said.
How long will it take to replace blown-out transformers if hundreds or even thousands suddenly are destroyed and need to be replaced? Now, back in the days of the Cold War, when we first learned about the physics of it all, our leaders were terrified by the prospect of an EMP attack against our country, and they kept trying to figure out reliable ways of protection. But once America won the war with the Soviet Union and tossed them into the dustbin of history, U.S. defense strategists, they relaxed and stopped thinking about the EMP. And they completely ignored what the Russians promised us then.
In 1999, at a high-level meeting in Vienna, Vladimir Lukin, the chairman of the Duma's Foreign Affairs Committee, angry with American policy in the Balkans, issued the following threat. If we really wanted to hurt you with no fear of retaliation, we would launch a submarine-launched ballistic missile, and we would detonate a nuclear weapon high above your country and shut down your power grid. Another Russian official, Alexander Shabanov, smiled and said, and if that one doesn't work, we have plenty of spares. We all know America has many enemies, but out of them all, we have to fear the worst.
For 25 years, this fallen empire has constantly been shamed by the U.S. and its allies. But ever since Putin rose to power more than 15 years ago, Russia has been recuperating, covertly scheming new ways to get back into the game and take over the world. Its GDP doubled from oil exports, and for a while, Russia felt like a great power again, until the Ukrainian crisis broke out. And more than 50% of Russia's gas export was halted as the pipeline network that delivered the gas load to Europe was on Ukrainian territory. That's when Putin decided to play tough and demand almost double the gas price for the EU members who still depended on Russian energy. Threatening to cut off the gas supply if they didn't pay, this insane energy blackmail enraged the European Union, who found a way to reassure the member countries that world oil reserves from the US and its allies will support a gas supply deficit for a full 90 days, until Russia will be out of the picture for good. So, not only was Russia blocked from raising the gas price, but now they have to lower it even more if they want to avoid a full-blown economic crisis worse than they've ever seen. And while more than half the national budget went down the drain, Russia faced a second price cut beyond their worst nightmares. A chain reaction follows, and global oil prices plummet to a record low 20% in just a few months, and continue to drop, which means Russia has to drop the price again and again. And what looked like a 50% gas income deficit is now rising dangerously close to the threshold of 100% money loss. The effect that this will have on their economy will start to show in the following months, if they don't do something about it. The crash in oil prices in the 80s destroyed the Soviet Union and kick-started its ultimate collapse in 1991. But the crisis they are facing now is far worse than any country has ever experienced. Going to war against the world to reclaim their oil and gas supremacy is something they can no longer afford to do. They're already too poor for that. Their only chance to win back territory is if America and its energy sector suddenly fall to the ground with no means of getting back up for the next decade. If that doesn't happen somehow, Putin will have to find a way to keep 140 million Russian people from going hungry and from overthrowing him. And he knows very well, once he loses support of his own people, he's as good as dead.
Today, our enemy is more prepared and more desperate than ever.
Our country's most valuable scientists and analysts, our military leaders, our policymakers are all quite familiar with the EMP and its terminal threat. An extensive study performed by the Congressional EMP Commission showed that critical systems in this country are alarmingly unprotected. You won't believe their predictions.
They calculated that based on current realities, in the first year after a full-scale EMP attack, about 2/3 of the national population will die from starvation and disease. That's 200 million American bodies that will be left to rot all over the country.
Talk about the danger that we face, as Newt Gingrich was alluding to. If there's an EMP attack, if Iran goes to the middle of the ocean with a nuclear weapon and launches it into space and it takes out our power grid, are we talking about possibility of 90% of Americans dying?
Yes, that's what the Congressional EMP Commission concluded, that up to 9 of 10 Americans could die from starvation, disease, and societal collapse. Of course, we're an electronic civilization, and everything depends directly or indirectly upon electricity. Without electricity, there's no communications, no transportation, business and finance doesn't work, even food and water, would not work, and or be available to the public. And so it's a high-tech way of killing people the old-fashioned way, through starvation and disease and societal collapse.
Just think about the horror that we'll have to endure because of our leaders' ignorance. That's right. Our enemy is now making the final preparations to attack the United States before it's too late. So if we want to know who that enemy is, we would have to know what is our most valuable asset that he wants to take from us. Consider the 55,000 miles of large diameter oil pipelines, along with some 40,000 miles of smaller diameter pipelines that spread all over our country. And the answer becomes quite clear. Our most valuable natural resource is petroleum and natural gas. So who stands to win everything by destroying our oil and gas sector?
It has often been said that 9/11 was a failure of our imagination. The fact is, we had warnings about terrorists flying airplanes into buildings, but we chose to ignore it. We decided not to go there. Pearl Harbor memos shows that the United States was warned of a Japanese attack, yet we did nothing. Last year, a sniper attacked and knocked out a substation in California, and it barely made the papers. The EMP threat falls into this category of denial. Our government fails to imagine it possible, even refuses to imagine it, despite overwhelming evidence that it can, and we believe will happen to one degree or another.
On the 70th anniversary of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Warren Kozak wrote in the Wall Street Journal that the skeptics of EMP might be right. We may never experience a serious EMP attack on native soil. But he also said, 70 years ago, similar doubters believed Japan would never be so foolish as to take on the United States of America, until, of course, it did. Analysts at the Congressional Research Service claim the Russians have their leading physicists focusing on EMP, and there's no reason to think otherwise, given Russia's history of firsts in military science. In October 1962, the Soviets launched a warhead on an R-12 missile to test the effects of EMP on military systems. They would later report their shock at the magnitude of damage inflicted. And that was more than 60 years ago. Imagine where they are now with this doomsday technology. And from what you've seen so far, you know there's nothing or no one standing in their way when they decide to blow off America. Except, maybe, ISIS.
Yes, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, also known as ISIL, or whatever the hell they call themselves this day, is the only force capable of ruining Russia's plan to overthrow America. Since their formation as a terrorist group deriving from Al-Qaeda, they killed tens of thousands of people. Today, ISIS is no longer just a terrorist group, but a feared army of fanatics who would do anything for their God. They could easily attack Russia and destroy their last chance to pay back America for the bitter humiliation they suffered from us. The ISIS army are the only ones fanatic enough to attack us again, and thus throwing us in a state of alert where no submarine could enter our waters close enough to detonate its EMP load. And Putin knows this all too well.
But slick as he is, he also knows how to turn this to his advantage.
Разве вы не понимаете, кто там воюет? Там воюют наемники. В основном. Вы знаете, что там платят деньги? И они воюют там, где платят больше. Вот они вооружились, им платят определенную сумму. Мне даже называли эти суммы, которые им платят. Они там воюют уже с оружием, все, у них уже не отнимешь. Потом выяснилось, что в другом месте чуть-чуть начали побольше платить. Они там туда перетекут.
You may have heard those rumors on independent media that Putin is not actually attacking ISIS rebels in Syria as he promised he would. And why would he, when he can use their fanaticism and greed to his own best interests? It would be a piece of cake for Russia to pay small ISIS terrorist groups for setting off the smaller EMP attacks to turn off our interception systems, giving Russia enough time to steer their state-of-the-art submarine close enough to detonate the real EMP bomb. And considering how everybody hates ISIS and speculates that they are filthy rich from the oil trafficking across Syria, it will be a delight for Putin to blame the entire hit on them, while he will be the real winner of the situation. And although it may take a while for him to establish world supremacy, his primary goal, ensuring his survival and the supremacy of the Russian people, would have been accomplished brilliantly. Do you think our leaders would ever do the same to ensure our survival? Should we ever find ourselves in a situation such as Russia's?
Do you think that the power plants across the country have the protection that they need?
No, absolutely not. Nuclear power plants, particularly if hit by an electromagnetic pulse, would melt down before too long, and you'd have disasters emanating from the nuclear power plants as well as from a lot of other sources. If you take out, by taking down the grid, if you take out the electrical system, everything else goes down too. We have 18 critical infrastructures in the country, and 17 of them depend on electricity. So you lose your communication system, you lose transportation, you lose your bank teller system for getting money. Nothing works.
And you were the head of the CIA. Our enemies know all this, correct?
I'm afraid they do. The Russians have told us that they, back in the early 90s, told the North Koreans a great deal about how to use an electromagnetic pulse detonation.
Think of it like this. Right now, our situation is worse than Russia's because our leaders wouldn't do whatever it takes to keep danger at bay. To do that, they would have to simply declare war against Putin based on the overwhelming evidence of the coming attack. But do you see Obama giving up the peace talk and declaring war against Russia? That, unfortunately, will never happen under the current circumstances. So our only hope now is people like you and me, real Americans who care about our families and our lands and will do everything in our power to make sure we remain alive and proud.
As I told you a few minutes earlier, I'm part of a team of scientists and survival experts who are willing to sacrifice everything to be able to deliver this right knowledge to all American families out there, so that we as a nation may still have a future ahead of us. The people you saw in this presentation and a few more brilliant minds have gathered all of the crucial intelligence required to survive the coming mayhem. And we are now in a hurry to spread the word and save as many people as possible. Now, our own resources are depleting fast, but with the help from outstanding citizens like yourself and others, we've managed to keep this site up and running for now. But we don't know how long it is until our efforts are sabotaged by the ones who try to keep this hidden from the world, whether it is the Russian Secret Service or our own, who might try to take us down. But as it may, now, at this very moment, you still have a chance to grab the life-saving information we put aside for you and use it to survive and thrive through the utter destruction of the American nation. We named this life-saving program Jumpstart Liberty, because that's our promise to you and your loved ones.
With the singular information gathered here, you can simply jumpstart your way to freedom and never fall prey to desperation, hunger, poverty, disease, and all the hell that will bestow upon our lands. Jumpstart Liberty will show you that having no industrialized energy production is not the end of the world. On the contrary, it can be the beginning of a new, even better existence. I kid you not when I say we will soon find a way, together, to use this situation to our own advantage and create new opportunities for us Americans, while building strong bonds between us survivors. We will be the new force rising from the ashes of ancient America to build something better for us and for our children and their children's children. Jumpstart Liberty is the answer to keeping food from spoiling without a fridge and storing heat-sensitive medicine. Surprising places where you can find drinkable water, enough to sustain your family for months, even if you live in an arid region. Shielding your electronics from the EMP, using something far better and easier to build than a Faraday cage so that you can still use these electronics for life support when the worst will come to pass. The must-have medicine supplies that can get you through any disaster. How much to store and where. What guns and ammo you can't do without, and how to use them wisely. Switching from bartering for survival to bartering for profit. Having the perfect mindset to be an inspiration for those around you so that you can make yourself understood fast and work together as a team at a high efficiency level. And much more. This is information you won't find anywhere else, and it's been well organized and tested by our team's top scientists. Most importantly, I'll show you how to keep your family hidden and safe when the EMP strikes, so that hungry and violent looters and invaders won't even notice your presence. You will be fully protected inside your house, and no harm will come to you and your loved ones. You reap the life-saving information inside the Jumpstart Liberty program, together with 2 free exclusive reports filled to the brim with powerful knowledge to help you survive the long night ahead. The Alternative Power Sources free bonus will show you why a bicycle-powered generator is better than a newer model running on gas, how to build a wooden stove and how to heat your home without using any fuel, how to make sure you have enough wood to last you all through the winter, and which type is the most cheap, easy to find, and with a high caloric power. In the Natural Antibiotics free bonus, you'll discover ways to treat infections using the most powerful natural ingredients that are sometimes even more effective than traditional pharmaceutical drugs, and even better, they don't have risky side effects. And since you grabbed your copy of Jumpstart Liberty, aside from these bonuses, you'll also be getting unlimited access to our members support area, where you will benefit from all the support and information you'll ever need to survive and thrive in the coming apocalypse. This is where I and my team are ready to answer any questions at any time regarding your survival needs. We will be there to help you if you need any clarification on anything. So let's unite and create an army of salvation throughout our beloved lands, because the value of taking this step is more than your life. It's your salvation. With what you'll discover in this program, you have the power to protect and save your family, even to rebuild your community during the darkest hour. Food, water, shelter, you have it all. All the valuable and crucial information guaranteed to keep you alive after the EMP attack.
Think about all the stuff you spend money on. All your preparations, the food and water you store, the guns you own, the home security systems, all of them can become useless in a matter of seconds after the EMP hits if you don't know exactly what to do. We've spent hundreds of days developing this one-of-a-kind course, and that's not counting the years of research we put in. You'll never have to spend money on any prepping materials anymore. Just think about the amount you're spending on food alone.
The average stockpile for a family of 4 for only 3 months cost $1,600. That's just 3 months. If you truly want to be secure, you'll probably need a 3-year supply, to say the least. But it can all go to waste if you don't know the right thing to do. And it's not only about the money. Think of all the time and effort you put into it. Don't be the one to lose it all in the blink of an eye. You deserve to outlive the coming disaster and be among those who witness the rebirth of our dear nation. The information contained inside is much more useful than what some expert preppers charge for their knowledge, which is $500 at the minimum for a 1-week training course. But I have dedicated this website to the American family, and we need to join forces and keep this website up and functional so this vital information gets to the people who need it and who are willing to do whatever it takes to ensure the future of their children. I want to make sure each and every one of you have the chance to survive the coming Russian retaliation, and that is why I'm offering the Jumpstart Liberty program for only a small contribution of $39, because we want to be able to save as many Americans as we can.
My honest option would be to give this away for free, but unfortunately we can't do that. As we tried that in the past, and sadly saw that people don't actually value what they get for free. And most probably you would just throw this in a corner and forget about it. That is why we had to find a just value for you and us together, and even accept your support for our continuous research so that we will always be able to provide you the most reliable information out there. That's why today, for every viewer of this presentation, we can offer a lower compensation for this life-saving program for only $39. And the only way to get this is to click the button below this video right now. Now keep in mind, your much appreciated contribution will keep this website running and help spread the knowledge of the coming catastrophe so that many more will be saved.
For just $39, you will get the Jumpstart Liberty program, and you'll know not only how to survive Putin's revengeful act against the USA, but also how to survive a food shortage, a mass pandemic, violent riots, and even an enemy invasion, all at the same time. Yes, you can only get Jumpstart Liberty here if you click the button now. This course will not be available anywhere else, and there's no way of telling how much longer this presentation is going to be up. My mission throughout this presentation is simple. Let people know and get them to prepare. As any good American, I'm willing to take all the risk here and give you my no questions asked, money-back guarantee for a full 2 months. Here's what it's all about. Go through the course, read it, see if you find it helpful, and send us any questions or any kind of advice you might have. When you're done, I want you to be 100% safe, secure, and happy about your investment. If for any reason at all that you want to get your money back, you will get it back as soon as possible. Guaranteed. You don't even have to answer any questions. Simply send me a quick email in the next 60 days, and I'll give you a full refund. No questions asked. Jumpstart Liberty will allow you to keep calm, collected, when even the rest of the world panics. When your neighbors are forced to barbecue all the meat they have in their fridges, you'll know the secrets to store it so your family won't starve next week. And of course, your family's going to have all the drinkable water you want. When others will die of dehydration or from drinking dirty water, you'll have enough water to cook, drink, and shower. 3 to 4 months from now, when the EMP hits, I'd hate to be that father who looks in his children's eyes powerless because he had no preparation in place. Overwhelmed with grief, knowing he had the solution in hand and the time to prepare, but did absolutely nothing. Could you live with yourself knowing you have received a powerful warning and you chose wrongly? Could you tell that to your wife and kids as the lights go out everywhere and panic sets in? When the EMP strikes, how much would you regret the choice you made today? Because right now, you don't have that many options, but you still have a choice. Sure, you could easily dismiss our warning and go to sleep tonight without a care in the world and just forget about the 2 world wars and their millions of victims. Forget about Pearl Harbor. Forget about 9/11. Forget about ISIS and the nuclear EMP bomb. And pray to God you get out alive when all hell breaks loose. Or maybe you think there's enough time to start prepping on your own. Go search the libraries and drill the internet for reliable knowledge to help you and your loved ones survive the mother of all blackouts. But please be realistic and at least admit to yourself it's no piece of cake. And the time you spend searching for solutions is prepping time that you waste. Why lose God knows how many hundreds of hours reading tons of uncertain information when you could be out in your garage building your protection against the EMP bomb?
My friend, this is time you don't have. Survival is about action, and this is exactly what Jumpstart Liberty will do for you. It will allow you to take the right action in the short time you have left and provide you the only straightforward escape plan that enables you not only to survive, but even to thrive through the coming ruination. Today, there is still time to make the right choice. So God bless you, and God bless America. Please click the button below, and I'll meet you on the other side.